In today's video, we are going to explore some interesting United States Washington quarter coins. We'll take a closer look at their designs, history, mint marks, condition, rarity, possible mint errors, and collector value. Each coin has its own unique story and characteristics, so stay with us as we discover what makes these Washington quarters special and interesting to collectors. Welcome to our channel and welcome to another exciting journey into the world of coin collecting. In this video, we'll take a closer look at some interesting United States Washington quarter coins, exploring their history, designs, mint marks, condition, possible errors, and collector interest. So sit back, enjoy the video, and let's discover these fascinating American coins together. The 1973 D Washington quarter is a United States of America 25-cent coin struck at the Denver Mint. It is identified by the small D mint mark located on the obverse, just to the right of George Washington's hair ribbon. This quarter belongs to the modern copper-nickel-clad era of the Washington Quarter series and was produced as a regular circulation coin. The 1973 D had a substantial mintage of 232,977,400 pieces, making the normal circulated example a common coin, rather than an inherently rare one. Nevertheless, this issue remains interesting to collectors because of its historical place in the Washington Quarter series, its different levels of condition rarity, and the possibility of finding genuine mint errors. Numismatic references list the coin as a 25-cent business strike with a weight of approximately 5.67 grams, a diameter of 24.3 millimeters, and a reeded edge. The obverse of the 1973 D Washington quarter features the famous left-facing portrait of George Washington, the first president of the United States. The design was created by sculptor John Flanagan, whose Washington portrait became one of the most recognizable designs in American coinage. Above Washington's portrait is the word Liberty, while In God We Trust appears to the left of his neck. The date, 1973, is positioned along the bottom of the obverse. The small D mint mark appears to the right of Washington's hair ribbon, identifying the Denver Mint as the place where this particular quarter was produced. These design elements are important when identifying the coin and should all be inspected carefully when evaluating its condition or searching for possible varieties. The reverse of the 1973 D quarter displays a large American eagle with its wings fully extended. The eagle holds a bundle of arrows in its talons, while an olive branch appears beneath it. The arrows and olive branch traditionally represent the nation's readiness for defense together with the desire for peace. Around the eagle are the inscriptions United States of America, Pluribus Unum, and quarter dollar. The phrase Pluribus Unum is Latin for out of many, one, a traditional motto associated with the United States. The reverse design gives the coin a strong connection to American national symbolism and is an important part of the classic Washington Quarter series. The 1973 D quarter is made from a copper-nickel-clad composition. Modern Washington quarters of this period were produced using an outer alloy consisting of approximately 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to copper core. The overall weight is approximately 5.67 grams, the diameter is 24.3 millimeters, and the edge is reeded. These specifications provide an excellent way to distinguish a normal 1973 D quarter from unusual pieces. If a collector discovers a coin that appears to be a possible wrong planchet error, missing clad layer error, or another unusual mint error, checking its weight and edge characteristics can be an important first step. The 1973 D mintage of 232,977,400 coins is significant because it tells us that the normal issue is not particularly scarce. Millions of examples survived, and ordinary circulated pieces can still be found today. Numista also lists the 1973 D mintage at 232,977,400 and shows indicative values that remain relatively modest for ordinary examples. This is an important lesson for beginning collectors. An old coin is not automatically rare or expensive. Rarity depends on how many were produced, how many survived, the condition of surviving examples, and how much demand exists among collectors. The 1973 D is not a silver quarter. This is one of the most important facts to understand when discussing its value. Regular Washington quarters were changed from the traditional 90% silver composition to copper-nickel clad beginning in 1965. The 1973 D belongs to that modern clad period. Consequently, a normal 1973 D quarter does not have the same precious metal content as a pre-1965 silver Washington quarter. Its collectible value comes primarily from condition, rarity, varieties, errors, and collector demand rather than from silver content. The standard references identify the composition as 75% copper and 25% nickel for the outer alloy. In circulated condition, the 1973 D quarter generally has a value close to its 25-cent face value. Numista's indicative figures show the ordinary issue remaining around face value through lower grades, with premiums appearing as condition improves. Coin World similarly lists relatively modest values for circulated examples, with prices increasing as the grade becomes higher. These numbers should always be treated as approximate market guides rather than guaranteed selling prices, because actual prices can change according to condition, appeal, certification, demand, and the specific characteristics of an individual coin. The coin becomes more interesting when it reaches mint state condition. A mint state coin is one that has not experienced the normal wear associated with circulation. However, being uncirculated does not automatically mean that a coin is extremely valuable. Modern clad quarters were produced in very large quantities, and many uncirculated examples survived. What makes very high grades more challenging is the requirement for exceptional surfaces, strong luster, good strike quality, and minimal contact marks. PCGS's price guide shows a significant increase for the highest grades of the 1973 D, with values extending into the hundreds and even higher for extraordinary examples. Coin World's published valuation information also illustrates this difference. Its table for the 1973 D copper-nickel clad quarter shows values increasing from modest amounts in lower grades to much higher levels in the finest listed grades. The published guide includes values of approximately $4.80, $11.25, $22.50, and $200 at progressively higher uncirculated levels. These figures demonstrate why condition matters so much, but they should not be interpreted as a guaranteed price for every coin in a particular grade. The actual selling price can be different depending on certification, appeal, strike, surface quality, and market conditions. When inspecting a 1973 D quarter for high grade, the obverse fields should be examined carefully. Look at the open areas surrounding Washington's portrait for scratches, contact marks, abrasions, and spots. Washington's cheek, jaw, hair, and neck should also be examined for signs of wear or contact. The lettering Liberty and In God We Trust should be sharp and clearly defined. A coin with strong original luster and very clean surfaces will generally be more desirable than one with heavy marks, even if both coins technically qualify as uncirculated. The reverse should receive the same careful examination. Look closely at the eagle's feathers, especially the central and upper areas, as well as the arrows, olive branch, and surrounding lettering. The fields around the eagle can reveal contact marks that may significantly affect the grade. Examine United States of America, EPLURIBUS UNUM, and quarter dollar for strong definition. A high-quality specimen should have attractive surfaces and good overall eye appeal. The best coins are not simply bright. They have original-looking luster and minimal distracting marks. One of the most exciting parts of collecting the 1973 D quarter is searching for genuine mint errors. A mint error occurs when something goes wrong during the manufacturing process at the mint. Possible errors include off-center strikes, broad strikes, clipped planchets, struck-through errors, missing clad layers, and wrong planchet strikes. These errors can sometimes be worth considerably more than an ordinary quarter. However, collectors should always be cautious because post-mint damage can imitate some of these features. A wrong planchet error is one of the most dramatic possibilities. This happens when a blank intended for another denomination accidentally enters the quarter striking process. Coin World records an auction example of a 1973 D Washington quarter struck on a 10-cent planchet, graded MS66 by NGC, which realized $399.50. This is an excellent demonstration of how a relatively common date can become substantially more valuable when it has a genuine and authenticated mint error. A quarter struck on a dime planchet would have unusual characteristics because a dime planchet is smaller than a quarter planchet. Part of the quarter design may extend beyond the smaller planchet, and the coin's weight and dimensions would be different from a normal 5.67-gram quarter. This is why collectors should never judge a suspected wrong planchet error solely by its color or appearance. Weight, diameter, thickness, edge characteristics, and professional authentication are much more reliable evidence. Another possible error is an off-center strike. During normal production, the blank planchet must be properly positioned between the dies. If it shifts before or during striking, the design can be impressed away from the center. A genuine off-center 1973 D quarter may show a noticeably blank area along one side while the design is pushed toward the opposite edge. The amount of displacement is important. A tiny shift may not be especially valuable, while a dramatic off-center strike with the date and D mint mark visible can attract strong collector interest. A broad strike is another type of minting error. It occurs when the planchet is struck without being properly contained by the collar. The metal can spread outward, producing a coin that is wider or differently shaped than a normal quarter. The edge can also look different from a standard reeded quarter. Collectors should distinguish a true broad strike from damage caused by machines, pressure, or other forces after the coin left the mint. Genuine errors normally show evidence consistent with the striking process. The 1977 D Washington quarter is a United States of America 25-cent coin struck at the Denver Mint, identified by the small D mint mark, located on the obverse side to the right of George Washington's hair ribbon. This coin belongs to the long-running Washington Quarter series and was produced after the special bicentennial quarter design used in 1975 and 1976. The 1977 D quarter returned to the regular Washington quarter design, making it an interesting coin for collectors who study the transition from the bicentennial period back to the standard design. According to PCGS Coin Facts, the 1977 D issue had a substantial mintage of 256,524,978 pieces, which means the ordinary example is not considered a rare date. However, condition, strike quality, eye appeal, and especially genuine mint errors can make individual examples much more interesting and valuable. The obverse of the 1977 D Washington quarter features a left-facing portrait of George Washington, the first President of the United States. The design was created by sculptor John Flanagan, whose Washington portrait had been used on the quarter since 1932. Around Washington's portrait are the important inscriptions Liberty, In God We Trust, and the date, 1977. The small D mint mark is positioned to the right of Washington's hair ribbon and identifies Denver as the production facility. Collectors should pay attention to the sharpness and condition of these areas because wear on Washington's hair, cheek, jaw, and surrounding lettering can help determine the grade of a circulated coin. The reverse carries the familiar American eagle design, with the inscriptions United States of America, EPLURIBUS UNUM, and quarter dollar. The eagle holds a bundle of arrows in its talons, while an olive branch appears beneath it, representing the traditional balance between military readiness and peace. The physical specifications of the 1977 D quarter are typical of the copper-nickel-clad Washington quarters produced after the United States stopped using silver in regular circulating quarters in 1965. The coin weighs approximately 5.67 grams, has a diameter of about 24.3 millimeters, and has a reeded edge. Its outer layers consist of approximately 75% copper and 25% nickel, bonded over a pure copper center. This construction gives the normal coin a characteristic copper-colored line or band visible on the edge. These physical characteristics are useful when examining a suspected error coin because an unusual weight, color, thickness, or edge appearance may provide an important clue that the coin was struck on an incorrect planchet. The D mint mark is one of the most important identification features of this particular coin. A 1977 quarter without a mint mark was produced for regular circulation at Philadelphia, while the 1977 D was made at Denver. The 1977 S issue was a proof coin produced at San Francisco. Therefore, if a quarter clearly shows the date 1977 and a small D beside Washington's hair ribbon, it can be identified as the Denver business strike issue. Collectors should be careful not to confuse damage, scratches, die deterioration, or dirt with a genuine mint mark variety. A filled or weak-looking D can occur because of die conditions or debris and should not automatically be considered a rare error. One of the most important facts about the 1977 D Washington quarter is that most normal examples are common. PCGS describes the issue as a common date, noting that pieces below the very high mint state grades are generally common, while MS-66 and especially MS-67 examples become considerably more difficult to find. PCGS lists an estimated survival of millions of examples in high grades, demonstrating that the ordinary 1977 D quarter is not scarce simply because it is nearly 50 years old. This is an important point for collectors because age alone does not make a coin rare. A coin can be several decades old and still have a relatively low value if millions of examples survived. Condition is therefore extremely important when evaluating a 1977 D quarter. A heavily circulated coin may show significant wear on Washington's hair, cheek, jaw, and the lettering around the rim. Such an example generally has little premium above its face value. An about uncirculated coin may retain more detail and some original luster, while an uncirculated mint state coin has never entered normal circulation and can preserve much sharper details. The difference between an ordinary circulated quarter and a high-grade uncirculated example can be substantial to collectors. PCGS specifically notes that the 1977 D becomes more challenging in MS-66 and that MS-67 examples are much less common. When examining the obverse, collectors should first inspect Liberty and In God We Trust, followed by Washington's portrait and the date. Look for strong original details rather than simply focusing on whether the coin looks shiny. A coin can have attractive luster but still contain contact marks, scratches, or weakly struck areas that affect its grade. The date 1977 should be clearly readable, and the D mint mark should be examined carefully. On the reverse, examine the eagle's feathers, the lettering around the rim, the arrows, the olive branch, and the overall sharpness of the design. High-grade coins generally show cleaner surfaces, stronger detail, and attractive original mint luster. The value of a normal 1977 D quarter is generally close to its 25-cent face value when it is circulated. Market guides can show higher values for uncirculated coins, but actual selling prices depend on grade, certification, eye appeal, and market demand. Recent price guide information places ordinary circulated pieces around face value, while higher mint state grades can bring premiums. PCGS records an auction result of $460 for an MS-67 1977D quarter, illustrating how dramatically a common coin can increase in value when it reaches an exceptional grade. This should not be interpreted as the value of every 1977D quarter. The great majority are nowhere near that level. The most exciting aspect of the 1977D quarter is the possibility of a genuine mint error. Mint errors occur during manufacturing and can make an otherwise common coin highly collectible. Examples that collectors may investigate include off-center strikes, broad strikes, clipped planchets, die breaks, and wrong planchet errors. However, it is extremely important to distinguish a genuine mint error from ordinary postmint damage. A coin that was scratched, squeezed, hit, heated, chemically altered, or otherwise damaged after leaving the mint is not normally considered a valuable mint error. A particularly important category is the wrong planchet error. This happens when a coin is accidentally struck on a blank intended for another denomination or another type of coin. The 1977D quarter is especially interesting because examples struck on unusual planchets have been reported. One of the most dramatic possibilities is a 1977D quarter struck on a 40% silverclad planchet left over from earlier production. A suspected silver planchet error should never be judged simply by color or appearance. Weight, diameter, edge characteristics, composition testing, and professional authentication are much more reliable. A genuine authenticated wrong planchet example can be worth dramatically more than a normal quarter. Another error collectors may encounter is an off-center strike. This occurs when the planchet is not properly positioned inside the collar during striking. The result can be a coin with part of the design missing and a noticeable blank area on one side. The degree of displacement matters greatly. A minor shift may have little additional value, while a dramatic off-center strike that retains the complete date and mint mark can be much more desirable. Collectors should be cautious, however, because post-mint damage can sometimes make a coin look distorted or off-center, even though it was originally struck normally. A broad strike is another type of mint error worth understanding. It occurs when the retaining collar does not properly contain the planchet during striking, allowing the metal to spread outward. A genuine broad strike can have an unusual shape and edge appearance compared with a normal quarter. The strength and completeness of the design, the amount of expansion, and the overall condition all influence collector interest. As with other errors, professional authentication is recommended for expensive examples. A clipped planchet occurs when the blanking punch overlaps an already punched hole in the metal strip. This can leave a curved or straight missing section along the edge of the coin. Genuine clips often display specific characteristics that help distinguish them from damage occurring after the coin was minted. A large and obvious clip can be much more collectible than a tiny irregularity. The size, shape, position, and type of clip all influence desirability. Collectors may also encounter lamination errors, die cracks, die breaks, and other abnormalities. A lamination problem can occur when layers of the metal separate or peel, while a die break can create a raised area or irregular feature on the struck coin. Not every die crack or surface imperfection is valuable. The collecting market generally rewards dramatic, clearly identifiable, and unquestionably genuine errors more strongly than tiny or ambiguous imperfections. One frequently misunderstood feature is a filled mint mark. A D that appears weak, partially filled, or unusually shaped does not automatically mean the coin has a rare doubled mint mark or special variety. Grease, debris, die wear, and other production conditions can affect how a mint mark appears. Collectors should therefore avoid paying large amounts for a coin simply because an online seller labels a weak or filled D as a rare variety. The 1979 D Washington quarter is a United States 25-cent coin struck at the Denver Mint and identified by the small D mint mark located on the obverse side near the right side of George Washington's hair ribbon. This coin is part of the classic Washington quarter series that began in 1932 and continued with the copper-nickel clad composition after 1964. The 1979 D issue was produced for normal circulation and has a substantial mintage of 489,789,780 coins, making it a common date in circulated condition rather than an inherently rare coin. Nevertheless, collectors continue to search for attractive uncirculated examples, unusually high-grade specimens, and genuine mint errors that can make an individual 1979 D quarter much more interesting than an ordinary example. PCGS lists the coin as a regular strike Washington quarter with a 5.67 gram weight, 24.3 millimeter diameter, reeded edge, and copper-nickel clad composition. The obverse of the 1979 D Washington quarter displays the famous left-facing portrait of George Washington, the first President of the United States. The portrait was designed by John Flanagan, whose Washington design became one of the most recognizable images in American coinage. Above the portrait is the inscription Liberty, while In God We Trust appears on the left side of Washington's portrait, and the date 1979 appears at the bottom. The Denver Mint identification, the small D mint mark, is positioned to the right of Washington's hair ribbon. The placement of the mint mark is particularly useful when identifying this coin because the same basic design was produced at different United States mint facilities. A 1979 quarter carrying the D mark is specifically the Denver issue. The reverse of the 1979 D quarter features the traditional American eagle design. The eagle is shown with its wings spread wide while holding a bundle of arrows in its talons. An olive branch appears beneath the eagle, symbolizing peace. Around the design are the inscriptions United States of America, Pluribus Unum, and quarter dollar. The phrase Pluribus Unum is Latin for out of many, one, and it has appeared prominently on United States coinage for generations. The reverse design gives the coin a distinctly American character and is an important part of the Washington quarter's historical identity. The 1979 D quarter is made from 75% copper and 25% nickel over a pure copper center. This is known as a copper-nickel clad composition. The coin weighs approximately 5.67 grams and measures about 24.3 millimeters in diameter. Its edge is reeded, meaning it contains a series of small raised lines around the circumference. These specifications are important when authenticating a suspected error coin. For example, if someone believes that a 1979 D quarter was struck on an incorrect planchet, checking its weight, diameter, thickness, and edge can provide valuable evidence. A normal 1979 D quarter should have the standard characteristics listed by professional numismatic references. The 489,789,780 coin mintage is one of the most important facts about this issue. Such a large production figure means that the ordinary 1979 D quarter is not considered rare merely because it is an older coin. Millions of examples have survived, and PCGS estimates more than 171 million surviving examples across all grades, with more than 51 million estimated at MS60 or better. This demonstrates why collectors should not automatically assume that every 1979 D quarter is worth a large amount of money. Rarity is determined by factors such as surviving population, condition, varieties, errors, and collector demand rather than age alone. The value of a 1979 D quarter depends heavily on its condition. A heavily circulated example with scratches, where discoloration and contact marks will normally have little premium over its face value. A better preserved coin with strong details and attractive surfaces can be worth more to collectors, while an exceptionally high-grade certified specimen can command substantially higher prices. Coin World's published values show that the 1979 D can remain near face value in lower grades, but rises significantly in higher grades. Its listed values extend into hundreds of dollars at the very top end, showing how much condition can affect a modern clad quarter. PCGS records an auction result of $1,078 for a 1979 D quarter graded MS67, sold through Great Collections in 2014. This is a very important example for collectors because it demonstrates the difference between an ordinary circulated coin and an exceptional certified specimen. A $1,078 auction result does not mean every 1979 D quarter is worth $1,078. Instead, it shows that a rare combination of extremely high grade, strong preservation, and collector demand can create a major premium. The vast majority of 1979 D quarters do not approach that price level. When searching through a collection, the first thing to do is confirm the 1979 date and D mint mark. After that, examine the coin's surfaces carefully. Look at Washington's cheek, jaw, hair, neck, and the fields around the portrait. These areas can contain contact marks that affect the grade. On the reverse, examine the eagle's feathers, arrows, olive branch, lettering, and open fields. A high-grade coin should generally have clean surfaces, strong detail, and attractive original luster. Small marks are normal on coins that circulated, but a truly exceptional mint state example should have significantly fewer distracting imperfections. The term mint state is important when discussing the 1979 D quarter. A mint state coin is one that has not undergone normal circulation wear. Professional grading services assign numerical grades to coins based on their condition. Coins in the MS60 range are uncirculated but may have noticeable marks or other imperfections, while higher grades require increasingly better surfaces, strike, luster, and overall preservation. The difference between MS64, MS65, MS66, and MS67 can be extremely important for modern coins because many examples survive in uncirculated condition. PCGS identifies the 1979 D as a common issue overall, but exceptional grades are much more desirable to registry set collectors and specialists. One of the most interesting areas of collecting is mint errors. A 1979 D quarter with a genuine mint error can be worth significantly more than a normal example. Possible errors include off-center strikes, broad strikes, clip planchets, die breaks, missing clad layers, and wrong planchet strikes. However, collectors must distinguish genuine mint errors from damage that occurred after the coin left the mint. A scratch, dent, bent edge, discoloration, or alteration caused by handling is normally not considered a valuable mint error. An off-center strike happens when the blank planchet is improperly positioned, when the dies strike the coin. The resulting quarter may have a large blank area along one side and part of the design shifted toward the opposite edge. The amount of off-center displacement is important. A very small shift may have limited collector interest, while a dramatic error that clearly retains the date and mint mark can be much more desirable. The date and mint mark are especially important because they help identify the coin even when part of the design is missing. A broad strike is another possible error. It occurs when the planchet is struck without proper containment by the collar. Instead of maintaining the normal shape and dimensions of a quarter, the metal spreads outward. A genuine broad strike can therefore have an unusual appearance compared with a normal quarter. Collectors should examine the edge and design carefully because post-mint flattening or mechanical damage can sometimes create an appearance that resembles a broad strike. A clipped planchet is created during the blanking process when a portion of the metal strip is incorrectly punched. The resulting coin may have a curved or straight missing section along the edge. Genuine clip planchet errors often display characteristics that can help specialists identify them. The size and shape of the clip influence the coin's desirability. A dramatic, clearly genuine clip can be much more collectible than a tiny or questionable edge irregularity. Another interesting possibility is a missing clad layer. Because the 1979 D quarter is made from bonded layers of copper and nickel around a copper core, a production problem can sometimes cause one of the outer clad layers to be missing. Such an error can dramatically change the coin's appearance and weight. Coin World records an example of a 1979 Washington quarter with a missing obverse clad layer, demonstrating that clad layer errors can occur in this era of U.S. coinage. Authentication is particularly important because environmental damage and chemical alteration can also change the color of a coin. Collectors should also be cautious about claims involving doubling. Not every coin that appears to have doubled lettering or numbers is a genuine doubled die. Machine doubling, die deterioration, strike characteristics, and damage can create confusing appearances. A genuine double die variety involves specific characteristics created during the die-making process and normally requires careful comparison with known examples. Therefore, if a 1979 D quarter appears to have unusual doubling, it should be photographed clearly and compared with authoritative references before assigning a high value. The D mint mark is another feature that should be inspected carefully. Collectors sometimes see unusual-looking mint marks and assume that they represent rare varieties. However, a weak, filled, damaged, or distorted D does not automatically mean that the coin is rare. Dirt, grease, die wear, contact damage, and other factors can affect the appearance of the mint mark. The 1982 P Washington quarter is a United States of America 25-cent coin struck at the Philadelphia Mint. The small P mint mark appears on the obverse, to the right of George Washington's hair ribbon. This issue is particularly interesting to collectors because 1982 was the first year that Philadelphia placed the P mint mark on Washington quarters, making the 1982 P an important coin in the history of modern U.S. coinage. The regular 1982 P quarter had a large mintage of 500,931,000 pieces, so an ordinary circulated example is not rare. However, high-grade examples and genuine mint errors can be considerably more desirable. PCGS lists the coin as a regular strike Washington quarter with a weight of 5.67 grams, diameter of 24.3 millimeters, reeded edge, and copper-nickel clad composition. The obverse features the famous left-facing portrait of George Washington, the first President of the United States. The design was created by sculptor John Flanagan, whose Washington portrait became one of the most recognizable designs in American coinage. Above Washington's portrait is the word Liberty, while the inscription "In God We Trust" appears to the left of his neck. The date 1982 is positioned along the bottom of the obverse. The P mint mark is located to the right of Washington's hair ribbon. This mint mark is especially significant because Philadelphia quarters produced before 1980 generally did not carry a mint mark, whereas the 1982 P belongs to the period when the Philadelphia Mint was now clearly identifying its quarters with the letter P. The reverse of the 1982 P Washington quarter carries the classic American eagle design. The eagle is shown with its wings fully extended and holds a bundle of arrows in its talons. An olive branch appears below the eagle, representing peace, while the arrows traditionally represent the nation's readiness to defend itself. Around the eagle are the inscriptions United States of America, Pluribus Unum, and quarter dollar. The Latin phrase Pluribus Unum means out of many, one, and has been an important motto on United States coinage for generations. Together, The inscriptions and eagle create the traditional reverse design that collectors immediately associate with the Washington Quarter series. The 1982 P quarter is made from 75% copper and 25% nickel over a pure copper center. This is known as a copper-nickel clad composition. The standard coin weighs approximately 5.67 grams, has a diameter of about 24.3 millimeters, and features a reeded edge. These specifications are important when checking a coin for authenticity or investigating a possible mint error. A normal 1982 P quarter should have the expected weight, size, metallic appearance, and edge characteristics. If a supposed 1982 P quarter has a dramatically different weight or appearance, collectors should investigate the possibility of an unusual planchet or another minting error, rather than immediately assuming that the coin is rare. The mintage of 500,931,000 is another important part of the coin's story. More than 500 million 1982 P quarters were produced, which means the normal issue is not rare simply because of its age. However, the 1982 P has developed a stronger following than many ordinary modern quarters because of its historical significance, its scarcity in exceptionally high grades, and the number of interesting errors and varieties associated with the 1982 Washington Quarter series. PCGS estimates approximately 175.3 million surviving examples in all grades, around 52.6 million at MS60 or better, and roughly 10.5 million at MS65 or better. PCGS classifies the normal issue as R10, meaning it is common overall. The value of an ordinary 1982 P quarter depends greatly on its condition. A circulated example generally remains close to its 25-cent face value, while attractive uncirculated examples can bring a premium. Numismatics indicative values also show that normal circulated examples are generally close to face value, with higher-grade pieces bringing more. These figures should be treated as guides rather than guaranteed selling prices, because the actual market value of a coin depends on grade, eye appeal, certification, demand, and whether the coin possesses a recognized variety or error. The greatest value potential for a normal 1982 P quarter comes from exceptionally high mint state grades. PCGS records an auction result of $10,200 for a 1982 P quarter graded MS68, sold by Heritage Auctions in 2019. This is an extraordinary result and should not be confused with the value of an ordinary circulated 1982 P quarter. The vast majority of examples are worth far less. The auction record demonstrates, however, that condition rarity can transform a common modern coin into a major collectible when a specimen reaches an exceptionally high certified grade. When examining a 1982 P quarter for condition, collectors should inspect Washington's cheek, jaw, hair, neck, and the open fields around the portrait. These areas commonly receive contact marks during storage and circulation. A coin that has never circulated may still have small marks from contact with other coins or handling at the mint. On the reverse, examine the eagle's feathers, arrows, olive branch, lettering, and open fields. A high-grade coin should ideally have attractive original luster, strong detail, minimal contact marks, and good overall eye appeal. One reason the 1982 P quarter is particularly interesting is its association with errors and varieties. Collectors have reported and documented different types of 1982 Washington Quarter errors, including off-center strikes, broad strikes, missing clad layers, struck-through errors, wrong planchet errors, and double-die varieties. Not every unusual-looking coin is a genuine error, so careful examination is essential. A real mint error is created during the manufacturing process at the mint, whereas scratches, dents, bending, chemical discoloration, and other damage occurring after production generally do not qualify as collectible mint errors. One of the most discussed possibilities is a 1982p double die obverse, commonly abbreviated DDO. A genuine double die is created during the die-making process when the design is impressed into the working die more than once in slightly different positions. Coins struck from that die can display genuine doubling in areas such as Liberty, In God We Trust, and the date. Collectors should be very careful because machine doubling can look similar to true double die characteristics. Genuine double die details generally have a distinct secondary design rather than a simple flat, shelf-like appearance. The motto, In God We Trust, deserves particular attention when examining a 1982p quarter. Some 1982 Washington quarters can show weak or missing portions of letters because of a filled die or grease-filled die error. This type of error can cause metal or grease contamination in recessed parts of the die, preventing the affected letters from being fully transferred to the planchet. The popular nickname In God We Rust is sometimes used when the T in trust appears incomplete or missing. However, a weak letter by itself does not automatically make a coin valuable. The feature must be consistent with a genuine die-related error rather than ordinary wear or damage. Another major error category is the wrong planchet strike. This occurs when a blank intended for another denomination is accidentally fed into the quarter press. A genuine 1982p quarter struck on an incorrect planchet can look dramatically different from a normal quarter. For example, a quarter struck on a smaller nickel planchet would have unusual dimensions and an unusual edge appearance, while a coin struck on an even smaller cent planchet could be dramatically undersized and copper-colored. Weight and measurements are extremely important when investigating these possibilities. A particularly dramatic possibility discussed for 1982p quarters is a quarter struck on a bronze cent planchet. Such an error would involve the quarter design being struck onto a much smaller copper-colored planchet intended for a cent. The resulting piece would be substantially smaller than a normal quarter and could show only part of the quarter design because the quarter dies are larger than the cent blank. Because such errors are exceptionally unusual, authentication by a professional grading service would be essential before assigning a high value. Another possibility is a quarter struck on a nickel planchet. A standard quarter weighs 5.67 grams, while a nickel planchet has different specifications. A wrong planchet 1982p quarter would therefore show an unusual combination of size, weight, edge, and design characteristics. The coin could appear smaller than a normal quarter, and the design could extend beyond the planchet. Such an error should be weighed using an accurate digital scale and examined without cleaning or altering the coin. An off-center strike is another error collectors should understand. This occurs when the planchet is not correctly centered between the dies during striking. The finished coin may show a blank crescent-shaped area while the design is pushed toward one edge. The percentage of off-center displacement matters greatly. A minor 1% or 2% shift is generally far less exciting than a dramatic 40%, 50%, or greater displacement. If the date and mint mark remain visible on a dramatic off-center strike, the coin can become especially desirable to collectors. A broad strike occurs when a planchet is struck without proper containment by the collar. The metal can spread outward, making the coin wider or flatter than a normal quarter. A genuine broad-struck 1982p quarter may also lack the normal reeded edge characteristics because the collar did not properly contain the metal during striking. The 1986D Washington quarter is a United States of America 25-cent coin struck at the Denver Mint and identified by the small D mint mark on the obverse, positioned to the right of George Washington's hair ribbon. This coin belongs to the modern copper-nickel-clad period of the Washington Quarter Series, which began in 1965 after regular circulating quarters were changed from the traditional silver composition. The 1986D had a substantial mintage of 504,298,660 coins, making the normal circulated example a common issue rather than a rare coin. However, the 1986D becomes considerably more interesting in exceptional mint state condition, particularly at the highest grades, and individual coins with genuine mint errors or recognized varieties can also carry substantial premiums. PCGS identifies the coin as a regular strike Washington quarter with a 5.67 gram weight, 24.3 millimeter diameter, reeded edge, and 75% copper and 25% nickel outer composition over a pure copper center. The obverse of the 1986D Washington quarter features the familiar left-facing portrait of George Washington, the first president of the United States. The portrait was designed by sculptor John Flanagan and became one of the longest-running designs in American coinage. Above Washington's portrait is the inscription Liberty, while In God We Trust appears beside his portrait. The date, 1986, is located at the bottom of the obverse. The small D mint mark appears to the right of Washington's hair ribbon and identifies Denver as the mint where this particular quarter was produced. These features make the coin easy to identify, but collectors should examine the mint mark, date, lettering, and portrait carefully when searching for varieties or errors. The reverse of the 1986D quarter carries the classic Washington quarter eagle design. A large American eagle appears with its wings extended, holding a bundle of arrows in its talons. Beneath the eagle is an olive branch, traditionally associated with peace. Around the design are the inscriptions United States of America, EPLURIBUS UNUM, and quarter dollar. The phrase EPLURIBUS UNUM is Latin for out of many one, a traditional American motto that appears on many United States coins. The eagle, arrows, olive branch, and inscriptions give the reverse a strong national character and make the coin instantly recognizable as a Washington quarter. The standard 1986D quarter has a diameter of 24.3 millimeters and a weight of 5.67 grams. Its edge is reeded, meaning that it has a series of raised lines running around the circumference. The coin's outer metal is approximately 75% copper and 25% nickel, bonded to a pure copper center. This clad construction is typical of Washington quarters produced after 1964. These specifications are extremely useful when investigating a suspected mint error, because an unusual weight, diameter, thickness, or edge can provide evidence that a coin may have been struck on an incorrect planchet or experienced another manufacturing problem. The 504,298,660 coin mintage is one of the most important facts about the 1986D issue. More than 500 million examples were produced, so the normal circulated coin is not rare. PCGS estimates approximately 176.5 million surviving examples across all grades, around 53 million at MS60 or better, and about 5.3 million at MS65 or better. PCGS classifies the normal issue as R10, which indicates that the regular coin is common overall. This is an important lesson for new collectors because the age of a coin does not automatically determine its rarity. A coin can be 40 years old and still be common if hundreds of millions were produced and large numbers survived. The value of a normal 1986D Washington quarter depends primarily on its condition. A circulated example with visible wear is generally worth around its 25-cent face value, although attractive or better preserved examples may receive a small premium. Numismatics indicative values show ordinary 1986D examples beginning around face value and increasing gradually with better condition. CoinWorld similarly lists relatively modest values for lower grades, followed by substantially higher figures for very high mint state grades. These figures should be considered market guides rather than guaranteed prices, because actual selling prices can vary depending on certification, appeal, quality, demand, and whether the coin possesses an unusual characteristic. The major opportunity for the ordinary 1986 D quarter is exceptional condition rarity. PCGS records an auction result of $900 for an MS-67 example, demonstrating that a coin with the same date and mint mark that is common in circulation can become valuable when it reaches an extraordinary grade. Coin World also lists a 1986D MS-67 example selling for $204 at a heritage auction sale, illustrating how auction prices can vary even among high-grade coins. The difference depends on grading service, surface quality, eye appeal, auction circumstances, and market demand. Therefore, the $900 record should not be interpreted as the normal value of every 1986 D quarter. When examining a 1986 D quarter for a high grade, collectors should carefully inspect George Washington's cheek, jaw, hair, neck, and the open fields surrounding the portrait. These areas are particularly useful for judging contact marks and circulation wear. A coin that has been handled with other coins can develop small marks even if it never actually circulated. High-grade collectors therefore look for clean surfaces, strong original luster, sharp details, and minimal distracting marks. The word liberty, the motto in God We Trust, the date, and the D mint mark should all be clearly defined. The reverse should be inspected just as carefully. Examine the eagle's feathers, arrows, olive branch, lettering, and open fields. Look closely at United States of America, EPLURIBUS UNUM, and quarter dollar for signs of wear, damage, doubling, or other unusual characteristics. The finest examples generally have attractive original luster and clean surfaces. A bright coin is not necessarily a high-grade coin, because artificial polishing or cleaning can make a coin look shiny while actually reducing its collector appeal. One of the most interesting aspects of the 1986 D quarter is the possibility of mint errors and varieties. A genuine mint error occurs during the coin production process and can make a normal quarter much more desirable. Collectors may search for off-center strikes, broad strikes, clipped planchets, struck-through errors, missing clad layers, wrong planchet strikes, die cracks, die breaks, and possible double die characteristics. However, an unusual-looking coin is not automatically a valuable error. Post-mint damage, scratches, dents, chemical exposure, machine damage, and normal die deterioration can all create features that inexperienced collectors may mistake for errors. An off-center strike occurs when the planchet is not properly positioned between the dies when the coin is struck. The resulting quarter may have a blank area along one side, while the design is shifted toward the opposite side. The amount of displacement is important. A very minor off-center strike may have little premium, whereas a dramatic off-center example can be much more desirable, especially if the 1986 date and D mint mark remain visible. Collectors should look for characteristics that demonstrate that the irregularity occurred during striking rather than after the coin left the mint. A broad strike is another possible minting error. It occurs when the planchet is struck without being properly contained by the collar. The metal can spread outward, resulting in a coin that is wider or differently shaped than a normal quarter. A genuine broad strike can also have an unusual edge appearance because the normal collar did not contain the planchet in the usual manner. Post-mint flattening can sometimes imitate this appearance, so authentication is important for a potentially valuable example. A clipped planchet occurs when the blanking punch removes a blank from a strip of metal in an improper position, leaving part of the planchet missing. A genuine clipped quarter may show a curved or straight missing section along its edge. Collectors should examine the shape and characteristics of the missing area carefully. A naturally occurring mint clip has specific diagnostic features that can help distinguish it from a piece that was cut, filed, or damaged after leaving the mint. A missing clad layer can also be interesting on a 1986 D quarter. Because the normal coin consists of bonded metal layers, a manufacturing problem can cause part of an outer clad layer to be missing. The affected surface may appear unusually copper-colored, and the coin can have a different weight from the normal 5.67 grams. However, a copper-colored quarter is not automatically a missing clad layer error. Heat, chemicals, environmental exposure, and other forms of postment damage can change a coin's appearance. A suspected clad layer error should therefore be tested and professionally authenticated before assigning a high value. A wrong planchet error is potentially even more dramatic. This happens when a blank intended for another denomination is accidentally fed into a quarter press. A quarter struck on an incorrect planchet may have an unusual weight, diameter, thickness, or edge. Because the quarter dies are designed for a larger planchet, the design may not fit correctly on a smaller blank. Collectors should never rely on color alone when identifying such an error. Precise weight and measurement, followed by professional authentication, provide much stronger evidence. Another area collectors sometimes investigate is doubled dies.